Good evening, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered the science of serendipity? Well, we got a show for you. Good evening, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV at night. This is a special edition at night, unless you're watching it in the morning, wherever you are in the world. Then then good morning to you.
Actually, yeah, in Australia. There goes my background.
My background. If you are not following us on YouTube, go to YouTube. Not right this second, though. And then subscribe. Hit the alert button so you know when we go live every single dang time. Come join us on a Tribe of Giants. It's a great place to be. Lots of great people that are supporting each other in their own Giants journey. And as always, I'm Ryan Morrison. This is Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. You can find that on Amazon or wherever books are sold someday.
Speaking the future now.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Serendipitously, we're going to get this everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should introduce our amazing guest because she is an amazing Giant.
So you were part of the magic that happened to create the Ultimate Coach event down in Arizona. And so we've known Judy for quite a while, and she is a creator. So when you talk about serendipity, I don't think there's anybody that is more I don't want to say inept. That's the wrong word. That's the other direction. Right?
She's anti-inept.
Adept. How about more inept? Like, we've never met anybody that doesn't know anything about serendipity, but we're going to bring her on tonight. No, she is phenomenal. She's practicing it. She's creating in her world. We just absolutely love you. So we see you as a giant, and tonight we get to dive into your brain. So you want to bring in the science to serendipity?
Going into your brain.
Isn't that a paradox?
Right.
A little bit. Well, welcome to the show. I'm going to let you lead us into the conversation around serendipity and why this and why tonight, right? So if you can do that, and then we'll dive in.
So cool. Well, this was inspired by a live video that you did, Nick, and you were talking about belief. And I think I was driving, which don't tell anyone I was driving, but I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been studying. And I wanted to dive in. And I think I messaged you right away, like, let's have a conversation around this. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're
welcome. I want to just dive in if it's okay with you guys.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to that conversation and start there, or do you have another start point? Because we are so flexible. Like, I don't have a list of questions to ask. I really feel like this is going to evolve nicely. So
metaphorically speaking, we're flexible.
We're flexible. Let's see you do the splits right here.
I'm not good. My kids were asking me the other days if I could touch my toes. That's not a thing currently.
We'll work on that.
I have toes. That's amazing.
Yeah. But I just want to dive into something that I have been studying out recently. And as a coach, I've been sharing this a lot with my clients because I just love that there's actual science that supports serendipity. You want to hear about it?
Yes.
And I know that you probably already know this because I know that Nick loves this kind of stuff.
There might be facets, but I'm here to learn as much as I want to share. Like, I want to learn. So yeah, I'm open.
Yeah. So there's a thing called the RAS system, right? Reticular activation system.
Yeah.
And it is a network of neurons. And what I like to think of it kind of like a bouncer for your brain, right? Did you know that we are bombarded with 11 billion bits of information per second? Did you guys know that?
Why you're like making me blush? You're speaking science language.
Oh, I hear Nick's getting excited.
Yeah, Eric. Hang on, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I'm speaking your language, but this is cool because this is where science and like spirituality like collide, right? Where it actually has the facts behind this, what we've
Yeah.
always felt and what we've always been experiencing.
Yeah.
So because we're bombarded with 11 billion bits of information per second, we are not designed to receive all of that at one time. We'd like blow up, right?
Right.
So the RAS system, some people call it the RAS, some people call it RAS. I'll call it RAS. It's kind of like this bouncer where it's only going to let in 4 things. Okay. So you want to hear them? Number 1, I'm going to tell you anyway.
No, I don't want to hear. Please don't tell.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Number 1 is you're gonna receive the when somebody calls your name. Okay. So that's gonna let in that in your RAS system. So let's say you're in a crowded room of 200 people and someone says, "Hey, Ryan," you're not gonna wonder like, "Oh, I wonder how many Ryans are in the room." We're self-centered beings. Right away, you're gonna be like, "Who's calling me?" Right?
They're talking about me, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Number 2 is gonna let in any kind of danger, right? So, we all have children here. If you have a little kid in the other room and you hear a loud crash, you're not going to be polite and say, "Hey guys, can you hold on a second while I go check out what's happening in the other room?" It's like instinct, right? Your fight or flight, everything turns on, adrenaline rush, you're out of there because your RAS system is telling you, "Hey, there's danger." Okay.
Can we hang right here for a second?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So if we get way off course, we'll bring it back.
Okay.
We got 2 more to go through.
That's right.
But the thing that will catch your attention, your name, right? The second thing that you mentioned was danger. And a lot of people get really frustrated with their negative thinking. So they just think, why do I have negative thoughts? Your brain is wired to notice the negative. Out of the 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts we have a day, 70% are negative. But what's happening is the brain is scanning for danger, right? That's exactly what's happening. And so it's looking for that in the environment. And so you're wired for it. That's why you think negative thoughts.
Yeah.
But if we can continue from there, it's awesome.
Well, you'll really like the third one, I think.
All right.
Okay. So number 1, your name. Number 2, danger.
Number 3, you hear the giant.
Number 3 is if you have kids in the room, plug your ears. It's sexual arousal. Okay, Ryan, I see your eye. So, which means like sexual chemistry, right? Like you can be walking by somebody and not even have any words, and like you feel it all in your nervous system, right? Everything fires up. I think, God's funny like that he created us that way so that we can populate the earth.
Yeah.
But that, your RAS system is sensitive to that and it's going to let that in, right? Whatever kind of like, you know what that means. Anyway.
Yeah.
And what I really want to camp on is the number 4 is that whatever is in our belief system, your RAS is going to resonate with whatever is already in there.
Yeah.
So, which means by the time between ages 14 and 18, 95% of our belief system is already hardwired and cemented, right?
Okay.
So when something happens, like you said, your mind is scanning for information of, oh, does this land? I just learned this like a couple weeks ago. Even the term when you say, "Hey, did that land for you?" or "No, that didn't really land." That's your RAS system saying, "Oh, did it land? Did it connect to something that's already a belief?" This is where cognitive dissonance comes in, is that you're only going to receive what you already believe.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
This is where we're going to have some fun, right?
We're going to have some fun here. Yeah. Go ahead. Did you want to say something
about that?
No,
it just brings up. So I've been thinking about words that we use today or ways of thinking that we have today around value systems and beliefs and what those are. I heard the podcast by Tony Schmaltz today that he did, and they talked about beliefs briefly. Like they hit it briefly, and then they talked about vision. But from the belief system, we use that. We say, "Oh, you just got to believe," and there's still no clear definition on what belief is, right? So the Germanic root of it is to hold dear. It's just whatever you're holding on to that you love. So I see it as we create our values based on preferences. So we have preferences for things, and then we form opinions from those preferences. Those opinions, I think, are the beliefs. So we have opinions about how the world works, what's good, what's bad. We could say opinions as easily as we could say beliefs, right? And then
100%.
we predict from those opinions. And so limiting opinions would say, you have this concept where your RAS would guide is that can't happen and you wouldn't see it, right? Which talks about serendipity. That's where we would dive into serendipity. But I'm wondering as we really look at a value system of who you're being is what you practice. So if you practice it over and over again, that becomes cemented in, or like you say, or it becomes hardwired as that's who you are. So from there, that's going to determine your preferences because you've anchored in and held on to what's important to you from your preferences. Like I like ice cream. You might not like ice cream. I like pizza. Some people don't like pizza. So from there, you might have some opinions about pizza. Does that make sense? Like
100%. And I mean, even before I learned this stuff, I just thought I was right all the time.
Yeah.
And now I'm even realizing that, belief is relative. There are going to be things that we believe that in a different culture, in a different country, they believe something else. And for them, that's hardwired for them. And that is something that they hold dear to, right? Yeah. And so do you see the polarization of how we can all just disagree on things because we're coming from a place of this is my belief and this is cemented and this is truth.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you are open to realizing, oh, wait a minute, truth and belief is a little bit relative, depending on, like you said, the values that you put in, it helps us to be a little bit more gracious. Yeah, and here's a really great question that is an NLP question that helps you get into the back door, because our belief system, our subconscious mind is there to protect us, right? There's guards, they're like armed guards, just they're not going to give up these beliefs.
Yeah.
It's there, it's solid.
Yeah.
So great question is, and I even ask myself this question, if I start to get heated, like, no, I know what I believe, I know it's true. Yeah. The question is, if you didn't already believe what you believe, would you be open to a different point of view? I mean, just feel that even in your nervous system, right? Doesn't that just like make you not defensive? That just helps you to be like,
If you didn't, let's reframe that a little bit. If you didn't have the opinion that you already have, would you be open to another opinion?
Yeah.
Right. Like, would you be able to let go of what you're holding dear now and exchange it for something better? Right. Maybe more empowering. That's where what we hold on to is what we've anchored in as our truth, like you say, and then we get in arguments with other people. And so we think we're right. They think they're right. We're both right, respectively. If you really look at the context of it, we're both coming from our points of view. So
let me give you a simple example of that. As a parent, trying to get my kids to eat their freaking food. And I'm like, this is good. This is amazing, right? Like, try this. Just try a bite. And they're like, no, I don't like X, whatever it is. And then I'm like, just try it. Oh, bacon. There was one where one of my kids would not eat bacon. I'm like, everybody loves bacon.
I was gonna say, who doesn't?
The whole entire world. Like, well, not the whole entire world, but you know what I mean. Like, from my point of view, I'm like, bacon's amazing. From their point of view, bacon's not amazing. And so like it once I could get my kid to like just be open to the other point of view and try it and think about it, tried it. And of course he's a little stubborn, probably like his mom, but hopefully she's not watching.
Right.
Yeah.
For my business,
he won't admit now that he likes bacon, but I see him over there like, like eating the bacon now that they tried it. But that's just a simple point of view. But then I have other kids that they won't budge from their belief of that taste like dirt, even though they probably even haven't had what we're serving.
I like that.
Oh crap! I'm in trouble.
Watching. So Judy,
That's
like
hilarious.
the idea of like humility, right? If we were to use that phrase, is an openness to be taught,
right?
Like a willingness to be taught something new. And many of us are unwilling to learn something new because we have the truth. Why would we need something new? There's the idea that people judge because it's easier. It's easier than or the other way around. It's no, they judge because it's easier, but they also, when they judge, they shut off learning. So they remember because it's easier than imagining into a new future. So that judgment, when they get into that space of judging, they're shutting off any learning. It's like you're wrong, I'm right. So I don't have to learn anything because I'm already right. So there's nothing to learn. And I'm sure people watching this can relate. It's like, I already know the answer, right?
I'm so glad you're talking about that, because I've recently been reading some books. And usually if something doesn't land right away, the book is stupid, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm open to this idea of like, oh, this isn't landing. Let me lean into it, because I need to learn I need to expand. I need to create new neural pathways, right? Like really grow and be open to something different. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Let me share one more thing here, how fascinating the brain is. So when ages 0 to 5, whenever I spent time with my grandmother, she's from Spain, and we spoke Spanish, right? And then we moved to the States, and then I didn't speak Spanish. Well, when I got married, we went to Mexico for our honeymoon. And so about 4 or 5 days in, when I'm like fully immersed in the culture and the language, and after a few Coronas, next thing you know, I'm speaking Spanish. And Eric looks at me and says, I didn't know you spoke Spanish. I'm like, I didn't either. And so that was in the RAS system, right? Wow. It was like dormant in there. And so that's how powerful, like things that are in the subconscious, things that we put away, things that we thought, oh, it's, we forgot about it. It's there when we need it. Right. And so it resonates. Go ahead.
Okay. No, like I love this, because ego or identity, whatever, let's call it identity more than ego, because there's a lot of hang up with that word. So identity, like who you say you are, gets in the way of us being able to see what's already in there, and then also what's possible out here. So we have this identity that says, I can't do that. And so we have the opinion we can't. So we just don't, right? There's a judgment of we just don't. So at some point, maybe you have this development of this opinion or this belief that I don't do that. I don't speak Spanish, but a couple of Coronas in, identity shuts off, right? And you're speaking Spanish. Like the beauty of that is that when people go under psychedelics, for example, I've done ketamine in the past, for anxiety, and it shuts off anything you think you are, everything you think you are. And in that space, you start to see things that you couldn't see because they were blocked by who you said you were, who you were being in the world. And so that, an example of the Corona, psychedelics, meditation, all these things that really get us to shut down our identity to where we can actually open up to what's possible, right? It's not like we need those things. We can do that without them, but we don't. Like we're just so ingrained in this is who I am. I can't do anything else. I don't do that. I don't have the brain for that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is where the serendipity comes in, because what you tell your brain, it is going to make whatever you tell it to be true. It's going to validate that belief, that thought, right? Yeah. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, if you are buying a new car, like what's your favorite car? What car do you want to have someday?
Well, I wanted the Cybertruck, but I don't think they're going to make it now. I have a deposit on it, and I don't think it's going to come out. So I hope I get my $100 back.
Okay. Well, for the sake of this example, what's a more a car that's actually out on the road.
I have a Ford F-150, so like F-150. I see them everywhere. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so once you put that in your brain says, "Oh, that's important to Nick. So let's receive that in the RAS system." Yeah. You're seeing it all around, or it's around you all the time, but you're not seeing it until you tell yourself, "Oh, this is important. I need to see this." Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like for example, when my son passed, you guys know that I lost a son in 2019. Yeah. And part of my belief is that whenever I see hearts, that's Jacob communicating with me. And so I believe that as a sign, and it always comes when I need it, when I'm asking for it, it's there. Right. And so because that's what I tell my RAS system, that's what I tell myself, that's what I believe, guess what? I see hearts all the time. Right. And as a grief coach, I help other families, and I know, people that are like, I don't believe in signs. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the afterlife. I don't believe in anything. So do you think they're seeing any signs?
Yeah.
Even if it came and saw them straight in front of their face, they're not going to see it.
No, because there's no view that would be there, right? Well, even going into now we're going to dive a little deeper here into the mechanics behind it, because there's two parts here that I've started teaching around, and some of this is taken from what Steve Hardison does, the ultimate experience. And anybody that's in that realm will know this language, would be very familiar. There's who's doing the doing, right? But there's also the component of who's doing the viewing. Like, how are you seeing the world? And that'll affect the doing, because your perception of the world is your truth. So when you go to predict, so speaking of prediction, before words, that's what that means. So we make predictions into the world. We're making bets about what's going to happen. We're, in a sense, gambling about what the next step is going to be. My efforts are going to pay off, so I'm willing to expend them because I have hope that that'll pay off, and I think I can do it. And if there's any obstacle, I'll get around it and I'll make it happen, right? But when you're in a state of grief or depression or anxiety and you're doing the viewing, well, then you don't see abundance in the world. You don't see possibility in the world. You don't have vision for the world. You have despair, actually. You go the opposite direction. You really control everything. There's no surrender, because you got to control everything. So there's this idea of perfection, and I have to control every step, right? And there's no nurturing or growing because you're judging everything. And that can be really hard. So what we do with the 12 journeys is we take people back through the root journeys where they actually do that work and heal those things before they do the viewing. So who's doing the viewing is as important, if not more important, than who's doing the doing, right? Because you're creating yourself, and then that's going to affect your RAS, your wiring, even the belief that you can wire. The brain is limitless. Like, you fit the entire internet in Judy's brain alone. Right? Just one brain. It's amazing, right?
Well, with my ADHD, you can fit, several universes in there, because there's a lot going on there.
Well, going into the mechanics now. So when you know who's doing the viewing and who's doing the doing, now the mechanics are the things you can't explain. It's like, how in the world? There's a book called The Case for Miracles, and it talks about there was an orphanage over in Africa. They hadn't had shipments in years. Like, nobody goes there, right? They happened to have a baby that had a particular bottle was a heated bottle, and there was only one in the village, and there was no way to get one. If it broke, this baby was going to die. It broke. And so they said a prayer, and they said, we got to have a bottle, right? And this is where the mechanics get weird. This is the weirdness of our universe, right?
Yeah.
And this is documented. So that afternoon, a delivery truck shows up. There hasn't been one ever, right? And that delivery truck was prepared 6 months ahead. And in that delivery truck was that bottle that they needed. Well, in the prayer, this little girl said, well, if they're going to send a baby bottle, why don't they send a baby doll for the baby? Well, she says, if the bottle's there, the baby's there. And so she rummages through the box and finds the baby at the bottom of the box, right? That went in another direction. So we measure time as relative. We have beliefs as relative, but time is limited only by our linear thinking, right? So, but in quantum physics, time is always present in all directions.
Oh, now you're speaking my language, quantum physics. I mean,
yeah,
you too.
So the idea of serendipity is like all of the people that you need, all of these resources that you need to be connected to, you're already connected to them. But what limits that connection is your belief system, like your opinion about it. So you can't connect with these people because you're not open to connecting with these people. You don't think that's even a possibility. So I wonder what that brings up, and we'll keep going here.
I mean, I can't even put into words. I think, like you said, what's for you is already there. You just have to take the veil off to see it. Right? Since I've been really focused on this in the last couple of weeks, there have been people that I said, I really want to have a connection with this person, or, oh, that person looks interesting. I wonder, if I can be their friend, or, just kind of weird things that only happens in here. And I kid you not. Next day, they're in my inbox, reaching out to me saying, hey, I would love to connect with you. Out of how many billions of people in this world, I have that thought. The next day, they're in my inbox. Like,
amazing. Yeah.
How did that happen, right? Because I think not only your RAS system, but there's also vibrational frequencies in which we attract what we're wanting, positive or negative.
Yeah, I was about to say that, Nick. Me and Nick have this thing where it's and then we'll get a text message from each other. It's and then usually means it's something that we've talked about, and boom, it appears at some point in time. I mean, we've had it appear years out, where we're like, remember when we sat there talking about this very thing, and then it's like, oh my gosh, we did. And we put it out there, we started working on it, and it morphed into something else, and we went down a path, and all of a sudden something comes out of left field. That's where the and then, or the serendipity gets to come in.
Serendipitous, like Mike Tyson would say, right? Serendipitous.
And the thing is that it's not, we don't even have to be super intentional about it. Like, once you put it in and your brain knows that, oh, this is important to you, it will confirm and validate that thought, right? For instance, back in 2013, when I first started, doing fitness in California, I put on my bucket list, my wish list, my vision board for that year is, oh, I want to be in a fitness magazine. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know any fitness people, but I'm putting that out there. And then I forgot about that. I had even written that down, or that I put that on my vision board. Like 8 months later, I had a client. She's like, oh, I'm an editor for this magazine. We want to do a feature for you. And I had forgotten that I had put that on my vision board.
Oh, right out of the secret.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then when I looked it up, I was like, I was just so, humbled that, wow, even when we don't remember what we put on there, if it's in there, if you tell yourself this is important, it's going to happen. And you can call it prayer, you can call it manifestation, you can call it intention, whatever you want to call it. It's powerful. So there's the science, and then there's like this weird woo-woo stuff that just connects.
The unexplained, right? So I'll share, Puerto Vallarta as a miracle, as a serendipitous thing, because I made this commitment to go to Puerto Vallarta, and I didn't have the money to do it. Like, so I was making this dream and my vision board, and I'm going to do this thing. And so I made the declaration. I'll be in Puerto Vallarta. I'll be on the beach, smoking a cigar, having some whiskey. Right. So just so you know, it's not a religious thing. I was going to have a cigar and some whiskey. So it works whether you're spiritual, religious or not. Right. So I go to work one day, and the owner of the company comes around and he says, let me show you something on my computer. So I go in there, and somewhere along the line, I had mentioned that I would love to go to Puerto Vallarta. Well, I go into his office, and on the screen, he has tickets to Puerto Vallarta booked for me, like ready to go. He just clicks purchase and bought me a ticket, which was awesome. Right. So I got the ticket. There was the ticket, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to Puerto Vallarta. Right. So I'm like, so how do I do the rest of this? Because I've got enough money to maybe get down there and get a hotel and just hang out. And somebody said, why don't you just create it as you go? That's what you do. So why not just manifest the hotel or wherever you're going to stay at? And I said, okay. So I didn't have a plan going down. I just had a plane ticket. I get to the airport, nowhere to stay when I get there. I didn't have anything there. I get to the airport. I go to the third floor of the airport, and it's the wrong floor. So I'm coming down to the second floor. I end up between a couple. And he's down below, and he's looking up. She's got the luggage, and she's got her arm in a brace. And I'm like, dude, what's going on here? Like, he's not helping her. He's like, I just had a hernia surgery. And she looks down.
Oh,
she's like, I just had shoulder surgery. And so I'm
they
like,
were like Nick's judgment.
My judgments are heavy. So I'm like, you guys are a mess. You're like a whole person between the two of you. And so we start talking, and they say, yeah, we're going back to Puerto Vallarta. And my ears perked up, and I'm like, holy crap, really? Out of all the people I could have ended up between, I end up between a couple going to Puerto Vallarta, and it was
okay. Wait, what airport were you in at that point?
Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was full. Yeah, I mean, the security lines were full. There's no chance I'm standing in between these guys right here. So we start talking, and then we part ways. They go through their security line. I go through the long line because I'm not rich. You know,
can I interject? Because I am an outgoing person, and my anxiety level for Nick was like, it's not even quantifiable. I'm like, are you going to be all right? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, where are you going to stay? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm like, what?
So we go through this line, and I decide I'm going to give him a book. If we end up at the same terminal, I'm going to give him a book. So I give him a book. We end up at the same place. We start talking. I tell him what I'm up to, what I'm going to do. She freaks out, like Ryan, right? She gets sick to her stuff. You can't do that.
You can't do that.
You can't go to Mexico. And she tells all her friends on social media, and they're like, this guy's an idiot. Who the hell would do that? Right? So still no plan. I didn't ask for anything from them. I didn't say, will you do anything? Nothing, right? I just told them what I was up to. Well, midway through the flight, she says, why don't you come stay with us for a few nights and just have a soft place to land if you need. And that way you've got some security. And I said, that'd be awesome. I said, yes. Wow. Right. Because how often
do you like science?
Come in. Do you like Well, they let me stay at their place in Puerto Vallarta, beachfront, 18th floor, beautiful new building, just literally just $1 million apartment. And they let me stay with them, and just incredible people. But we created more miracles from that. Like I started just serving, and people saw this whole journey and they wanted to be a part of it. So they send me money, and they're like, wow, why don't you do this? Will you take that family to breakfast? So I go to offer them to go to breakfast, and they say, no, why don't we give it to this family? So we go to that family, and turns out they've been praying for some money to come in so that they could build out their restaurant. And I start crying, right? And I'm like, dude, we can't just give them $100, which was the amount. It was like, so I dug in my pocket and pulled out some money and matched it, and matched another $100. And it was what they needed to build out their restaurant. And it's like that miracle never would have happened, right? If I was still closed off of, I've got to be at this resort at this time, and I got lunch at this time and dinner. And so I'm not going to talk to people because I'm going between hotels. And it was just, the whole journey was just an adventure. I didn't know what I was doing next, where I'd be sleeping. I was creating it as I go, but I was stepping every day, and that's kind of the magic of the whole thing. Just to wrap up here, because I know I've gone long-winded here. When I got back, I was short money, right? I was short about $1,000, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just wrote, I have enough to cover everything, right? Yeah. Well, the guy that I work with says, hey, did you know that we have this extra money coming to us? And I said, what do you mean? And he says, well, you get paid this amount for this time. And I said, I didn't even know that was a thing. Well, I calculated it out. It was $1,000.
Wow.
And so like, it's just, the whole thing was an adventure of like just trusting that whatever was needed was going to show up as needed, and if it didn't, I could pivot and create some other way. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the perfect example of, you cannot be in worry and in creation at the same time. Right? Like, the circumstances naturally would make anybody worry. Like, I'm in a foreign country. I don't have the money. I don't know anyone. To be in worry would be natural, but you were in creation. And so when you're in creation, serendipity happens, like magic happens, right?
Beautiful. Yeah. I love it.
And you live in flow, and it's so fun. But so many of us don't do it because we're in our head, right? It's not practical. It's not rational.
Yeah.
Who does that? That's not like, that's stupid or crazy, but that's where the fun is.
Steve Hardison is masterful at this. Like, when you guys were with him, when you did that whole trip out to California, and there was magic that was created in that. Yeah. He calls on his way home. He says, Nick, I'm going to create a miracle on my way home. That was it. We hung up. And then a little bit later, he calls and he says, guess what? I got amazing news. I said, what? He said, I got a flat tire. And then he went into what is now known as the tow truck driver distinction. He called the shots. Every single thing was a creation. And so many of us are afraid to call the shots because we've had past experiences that say that our shots don't hit, they don't land, right? So we're afraid to call the shots.
Wow.
Can you speak to that? I mean, does that bring anything up for you? Yeah.
So I am sitting in a creation right now. I don't know if you can see. This is my Pilates studio. Okay. I don't know if you can see that dark in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Long story.
No.
Long story short, I was going to open up the studio, and then there was a falling out with my partner and it didn't work out. And so I was pretty much like, well, that door closed, so I guess I'm not supposed to walk through that door. And then another friend says, well, there's some spaces over here in this side of town. Have you checked it out? And, maybe that'll work out for you. And I was already, convinced that it wasn't going to happen. But she says, just check it out and see. When I walked in here, this was part of a demoed restaurant. It was completely in shambles. But when I walked in, I just felt everything in my body like, this is where I'm supposed to be. We live in Arizona, and so rent, it's pretty high, and just the utilities alone, we had to budget in at least $700 to $800 a month just for utilities. When I came in here and I talked to the landlord, they said, oh yeah, and this is how much it is, and all utilities are covered in your rent. I was like, where do I sign? So I signed with no money, with no plan, with no machines, nothing. And I just, by faith and creation, I'll figure it out, right? So I signed a 3-year contract. So I made a commitment for 3 years here, not knowing how I was going to come up with the money. So I had to but I had to put a deposit down for these machines. These machines are like 10 grand a piece. I have 6 of them in here. I had to put down $25,000 that I didn't have. I had 30 days to do it, right?
Holy cow. Yeah.
So most rational people would have been coming up with a plan to make it happen. I was sitting at home watching Netflix and eating ice cream because I was in fear and I was
shut down mode, right?
Shut down mode. I'm like, what the hell did I just do? Right?
Holy cow, yeah.
So I was supposed to have the deposit in by the end of June 30th. It's June 25, and I still have no money. I got to put in $25,000 for these machines. And nothing makes you more productive than the last minute, right?
Yeah.
So then I start cranking.
Holy
I'm like,
cow,
okay,
yes.
I got to figure this out. Like, what's going to happen? And I had an approval for a loan, but because I was in litigation with my old partner, they couldn't use my income from that company because I was in litigation. And so they're like, well, we can't give you the loan we promised you, but we'll give you a loan for 29% interest. And I was like, oh, heck no, like that's crazy. And so I had to get creative, right? I had to create.
Yes.
Like, what can I do? Okay, well, what if I ask my clients if they want to invest? And I don't want to do that. I mean, who wants to do that, right? Like that was not my idea of a good time, but I was desperate.
But it's a possibility, right?
It's a possibility, yeah.
What you do when you get desperate.
So I asked 3 people. The first guy said, let me think about it. The second guy said, oh, we just invested in Jimmy John's last week. You should have caught me last week, but we're not investing in anything right now. So as I'm talking to this person, another person walks by because I'm in my other studio, and she walks by and she's like, oh, what are you guys talking about? And Judy, what's happening with your studio? How's it going? And I said, well, I'm still trying to come up with funds. And she goes, well, how much do you need? And I said, I don't know, like 30,000, right? Because I'm thinking about, I've got to build out and I've got to do floors and mirrors and everything. And she says, oh, is that all? And this is a person I don't really know very well, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, well,
did I say 30?
Yeah.
I meant 50, but
130.
So
130.
she says, let me talk to my husband and see. But again, I'm from LA, right? I'm used to like, oh, we'll do lunch and then nothing ever happens. So I took it with a grain of salt. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the
So
famous line, right? We'll
right.
do lunch. See you
We'll do
never.
lunch. So the next day, I have 4 days left, right? I have 4 days left. The next day, I'm going to a retreat. And at this retreat, there's no technology. The only time you can get on technology is when you get back into your hotel room at like midnight. So not
A lot
only
of
do I
cool
have,
things happen to you, Judy, when just before or
I
during
know.
retreats. You should do a lot of them. Take us with you.
Here I am. I've got 4 days left to come up with money. I have nothing. I only have one egg in the basket, which is some passing by woman that said, "Oh, I'll talk to my husband. We'll see what we can do." And I'm at this retreat and I can't even follow up with anyone. So this is Wednesday. By Friday night, I get an email from this woman and says, "Oh, I talked to my husband. We'd be happy to help you. How much do you need?" And so I was like,
crap.
I'm like 40,000. And they're right now, they were vacationing in like Lake Como. She's like, "Okay, give me the routing number and we'll transfer the money."
Oh my goodness. Amazing. Amazing.
And that is what the power of commitment.
Yeah.
The power of creation.
Ryan, do you remember the event in February of 19 that, or it was 18, I think, February 18 or 19, when I said I would be at that event. It was $10,000 for a 3-day weekend. And Brandon Craig says, I said, "I don't have that. I don't even have that." And he says, "Well, your coaching has begun." Right. And I'm like, oh shit, I think I went pale because I said, yes. I said, I'm in. It was $10,000 for a 3-day weekend with Brandon Craig. And I didn't have it. And Ryan, I don't know if you remember, like I was committed. I sold my motorcycle. Like I was willing to do whatever I could think of to create this money. And like you, last minute, I didn't have that money. That about a day before the event, I had a coaching client sign up for a 1-year agreement. It was $10,000 is what I charged him. And it was exactly what I needed for the event. And I took that check and converted it right around and gave it to Brandon Craig and fulfilled on the day of the event. I had the money in hand for the event and I got my seat. And I can tell you that event was a catalyst in a friendly, divorce, which is sometimes really hard. No attorneys, like being able to communicate. That event allowed that to happen. So it was a miracle in a lot of ways for my family. But like you, that commitment, it scared the crap out of me. Like, how the heck am I going to come up with that? Like, how are you going to come up with 25 grand for your space? Right. You're like, I'm signing a contract and I don't have a dime. Go ahead.
Well, and we're going to loop it back around to the RAS system.
Yeah.
Because in my RAS system, my belief, my like deep belief is that it's all going to work out in the last minute. Mm. So I had a coach during this time and my coach was laughing at me. He says, "Well, one of two things that you can do. If you know that everything works out in the last minute, then you don't have to worry and you just kind of like chill and just know that's going to happen in the last minute. Or you can change your beliefs into maybe, doing a little bit of work consistently so that you're not waiting. I mean, this has happened since I was a kid, homework always turned in last minute, tests last minute, studying at the last minute. So it's shifting that belief, but like how strong that is. Yeah. My RAS says, "Oh, we got you. You believe that things are going to happen last minute. We're going to be with you until the very last minute."
Do we want to dive into the science of the brain a little bit and the wiring of that and how that shifts?
Sure.
You open for that, or is there another direction you want to go?
No, I'm good.
Interesting.
Tell me.
So we're going to talk about the science of the brain and how it works, because each of us has approximately 86 billion neurons. We have an almost equal number of what are called glial cells. And so over time during development, most of our development happens after birth up until the age of 25. And then we go to cognitive decline. So we start to decrease. We really prune off what sticks. But during development, we we're acculturized, or we receive proto-value systems from the people that we're around. So depending on where you're raised, you're going to have different values based on the people you grew up with, period. And so those proto-values become the foundation for our next and adapted or adopted values. And it's all wiring. So your brain is out there saying, this is important, this is repeated. And in that repetition, the glial cells come in and say, let's make this more efficient. So what are called the oligodendrocytes come in and they wrap the axon of the neuron to make it fire faster and faster. So now you're firing it quicker. And then astrocytes come in and wrap the synaptic connection so that the chemicals aren't wasted. And anything that does get moved out of the synaptic connection gets reabsorbed more quickly so that the neuron can fire more efficiently. And then you have what are called microglia that come in and clean everything up because you can't have enzymes in your brain. So they clean it up and digest it and spit it out with the brain fluid. And that's how you digest stuff in your brain. So when you go to sleep at night, your brain is repairing the low-level brain damage of the day, right? So as you're practicing stuff, the brain's cleaning it up at night when you sleep. So that's why sleep is so important. So as we practice something, we get really good at it and we're supported, whether it's useful or not useful, the brain doesn't care. It's just going to support whatever gets repeated. So if Judy is last minute Judy, then that's what got supported, right? And so that becomes an automatic or non-conscious behavior. So it's not subconscious because subconscious is beyond your cognitive control. You can't dictate your heartbeat. You can control your breathing and slow your heartbeat down, but you don't really have a say in your life, right? Your body keeps you alive. But non-conscious is that stuff that you programmed in that you could actually pull to the conscious level and work on it and plug it back in. And so the brain is designed around automating whatever it is we repeat. And that's as simple as it is. So if we have the belief or the opinion that we are a certain way, I don't have the brain for that, and we repeat that, that becomes our truth. And the brain says, okay, I'll support that. And so that's what shows up, right? And then, like you said, your RAS comes in and says, hey, let's look for that in the world. It'd be fun to find that. And here's the beauty of confirmation in the world is it releases dopamine. When we find confirmation, even if it's not useful, but it agrees with what we think is the truth, we get a release of dopamine. It's like, I knew it, right?
Wow.
I was so right.
I knew it, right? So the development, the brain is plastic, which means that it has the ability to create new neural connections for your entire life. So to cement it in, like to even use that word cement in, isn't quite accurate because it's not cemented. It is adaptable. So what you practice from here can become the new way of being. And then that'll affect what you see and what you believe and what you put out into the world. So now I'm wondering what's coming up in your mind, and Ryan, maybe what's going on, like as you hear that, like how does that tie in now to the beliefs? Because it's supported mechanically.
For me, like I was listening to Tony Schmaltz in his interview, and what hit me is one of the interviewers said, like, oh, so you got to be conscious about what you're putting in and blah 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 blah, and you create from the conscious. And I was like, yes, but as you're consciously creating, your subconscious is learning to believe the things that you're telling yourself and consciously creating. So it's really both. You need to consciously be aware until you can automate it and then move to the next thing and the next level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Did everyone wake up?
Wake up. That was perfect.
Everyone fall asleep.
No, that was perfect. Ryan, that was only
They're all grabbing their dictionaries after Nick. They're like looking, fact checking him.
Yeah,
Alex says this is a family program.
Astrocytes, not astrophytes.
Astrophytes. I don't know what astrophytes are, but Nick,
I don't know what they are.
Language.
But if you got astrophytes in your brain, there's probably a bigger issue. That might be a tumor.
Yeah, you might need a cream for that.
Wow.
Judy, what came up as you heard that?
I mean, the power of what we put in is what we're going to get out.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work on helping people reprogram, right? What's in that, I call it cemented, but I totally agree. It's not cemented,
No. Yeah, don't let me ruin your.
No. It can shift, right?
Mhm.
And that's why shifting is so important, because, we think of like this big, huge, epiphany, and that blows everything up. It doesn't usually work that way. Sometimes it's just little shifts.
Yeah.
And those shifts are what create the big,
Yes.
big change. And so being open, shift happens. So even let's just take, for instance, when I finally got the money to open up the studio and we were getting ready to open, there was a lot of beliefs that came up for me of, oh, you're not smart enough to have a business. Who do you think you are to, all the negative belief systems that came up. And so I did some work around what I call breakthrough, which is going into the subconscious programming and figuring out, first of all, where's the root of that? And then second of all, let's rewire that into something more positive, right? Get rid of the unuseful thinking, and let's rewire that. And so what do you think is more important, facts or feelings?
See this? Okay. Facts. For sure.
Facts? For sure. How about you, Ryan?
I'm more of a feeling kind of dude.
Well,
see, that's why we work well together.
Let me
I feel this. He's like, well, factually speaking.
Okay, so here's where I come from, though. My context, as I say that, is from a negative space. If you're feeling negative emotions, then facts, right? But in creation, feelings. When I'm leaning toward a vision that isn't here as a reality, there are no facts, right? So I have to lean on feelings for that. But if I'm in a negative space, facts pull me through. So that's kind of the context. Is often I would think I was my feelings, when all that was happening is that my thoughts were generating feelings based off of who I was being at that time, right? So it wasn't my feelings. I was my thoughts that were generated from who I was being. And so if I can get into the facts of that, then I can see, well, who's showing up, right?
Yeah. Well, I think you're an anomaly, because most people, feelings are gonna beat out facts. And let's even look at addiction, right? I mean, we have a lot of information and education around, drugs are bad for you, but your feelings, if you really want that, you're going to figure out how to get that, even if you know that it's bad for you, right? Or overeating, or overspending, getting into debt, whatever. So so for instance, for me, to make it real, during that time I was opening up the studio, my feelings of, I'm not smart enough to do this. Who am I? Who do I think I am to open up the studio? Those were my feelings. It was overriding the facts that, oh, well, I have everything that I need to have a successful business. Like if you looked at my business plan and, the bank looked at it, my whatever, the facts were, you have a solid plan. But my feelings were, oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm not smart enough. And so when we did some work and breakthrough around where that was coming from, here's interesting thing. I actually had to have 3 breakthroughs just in that 1 week, because it was so heightened. Whenever you're getting to the next level, I mean, you're going to be completely faced with resistance, right? And we all know that. When you get to that next level, everything is going to try to keep you safe in status quo and into, what's comfortable for you. And so in the first breakthrough, I realized there were these dormant feelings from the RAS system that was from my 7-year-old self, that when I moved from the Philippines to the United States, there was this feeling of uncertainty. I'm stepping into a new world, a new culture, a new language, new neighborhood, new friends. And that newness, there was a lot of fear there. And so that was still left in my nervous system, the 7-year-old feelings of coming into a new situation that was being activated by
I'm having such a vision here around this, around we store memory through feelings, right? Through the entire body. I just pictured Beetlejuice. And I don't know why, but I just picture him digging through stuff and throwing it around to find that one thing, that he needs, that is there it is, right? Like the RAS is almost like Beetlejuice. It's
I
like,
love that.
give me a minute and I'm going to find the thing, not just externally. Like we talk about the sensory perception filter, and then we'll go back to your breakthroughs here. But it's internal too. Like it goes in as much as it goes out to find what aligns for you. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like Beetlejuice is like digging through all the dirty clothes and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, there it is, and I don't know if that's actually what happened, but
that's a great visual. I love that. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah.
So the second thing, and this is where like, epigenetics comes in. This is where, it's either your imprint, right? Something that you were groomed or trained in being, or blueprint of, your DNA. And so growing up, my father was an entrepreneur, and my whole life I watched him start something and then not follow through, or, start something and then he got swindled and he failed or whatever. So there were these, in my nervous system, these emotions and feelings of failure that were not even mine, but it's what I observed. And so that was stuck in my nervous system, and all these feelings that I was having of, this is going to fail. And who am I to be an entrepreneur? Who am I to be a business owner? That was coming from that root of not even my stuff, but my dad's stuff.
I'm just having this thought, that people say, I'm doing generational healing. And if that's a belief, well, that's a lot to take on to do what you want to do in life, right? Not only do I need to take care of my life, I'm also going to heal my generations. And it's the only way that I can do my life is by healing the generations. But do you really need to heal the generations, or is that just a perception that we carry forward based on a belief system? And now that becomes a condition of success, right? I don't know if that makes sense. Like I have all this stuff that I need to clean up first so that I can do this, like an if then that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I hear like
Yeah.
two schools of thought on that.
Okay.
I know people who are like, you don't have control over that. Just deal with you and just move forward with your belief, your thoughts. Just start fresh, right? Because you can't control that. And then there's another school of thought of, like you said, healing.
Yeah.
Of, in order to move forward, you've got to kind of clean up and heal these things. So it's depending on your RAS is what you're going to.
That. Yeah. It's relative, right?
It's relative.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I had to look at the evidence.
And its relatives.
Good one.
Relatives.
Relative.
Sorry, that had to come out.
I had some coaching a couple weeks ago where the guy basically was like, you just got to F your feelings, because your feelings and facts, even though the feelings are stronger than the facts, sometimes you have to just look at the evidence and just look at the facts and choose. You got to choose to believe the facts versus feel the feelings.
Right.
So anyway, that's my 2 cents when it comes to those breakthroughs.
There's one more breakthrough. So you had epigenetics and you had internal stuff from childhood. Was there one more? You mentioned there
the last one was just looking at the facts and the evidence.
Okay.
And then reconciling that with the feelings. So.
Yeah, that's powerful. And very hard to do. Like I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I know better. Why does this still happen? I know all this stuff and I still do it. I know people who are therapists that have done this for a lifetime, 20, 30 years, and they're sitting there and they're in their emotions. And they're like, I know better than this. And they really slam themselves for getting into their emotions. But your emotions are designed to override your logic. They're designed to save your life, right? Like they flood in all directions instantaneously to override the neural system. And so, of course, it's going to shut down the brain. Of course, you're going to repeat, even if you know it's going to shut off your knowing. You don't even have access to it. So, like, give yourself, like you say, some grace around having your emotions come up.
Yeah.
Don't call me out.
Right. Well, like we're in here talking about this stuff, and somebody at home could be like, "Oh, well, they're this or whatever." Dude, we go through the same crap. Like we'll catch ourselves doing the things that we say that you shouldn't be doing. It's like, crap, I know better.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
why
you have to, then you work on it.
Yeah, that's why conscious creation is so powerful, because that gets you living into the present and not just being in your default system, right? Your default way of being. You're actually designing your life versus just letting it happen.
Yeah.
And it takes work.
It does.
It's not
take
easy.
work.
It's so much easier to be in the default mode, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're designing, can I just share one really cool pro tip on the RAS? I know we have time.
I hope we have time. I don't want to stop. Like, I feel like there's still more to go if you're okay. Like,
I'm good.
Can we just start?
Let's go for a little bit longer here. So please share.
This is so fun.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing about our RAS is that it's kind of like why vision boards work, why The Secret works, right? All these things. When you input, consciously input, intentionally input, you're going to get that out, right? And so when you think about the default, when you're ruminating on all the, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not smart enough, whatever, right? Then that's your RAS. That's going to, your brain wants to validate that for you, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you think is the most least used real estate on your phone?
Least used real estate on my phone. Holy crap! This is
most used is the TikTok application.
Oh
this is probably my banking app.
The fitness app, right? It used to be the fitness app that was on there.
Okay, it's kind of a trick question, but it is your home screen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The research says that an average person is picking up their phone at least 150 times per day. Yeah. So you're looking at your home screen about 150 times per day. Do you know what I put?
My dad picks it up like once, and I do 300. So like then the average
that evens out. That's right. Yeah. So I actually put my document as my home screen so that I can be reminded. So that I can be reminded of who I am. Right?
I'm just kidding. I put and tell people what the document is. So for context, somebody watching this might not know what you mean when you say that.
It's like my creation of myself, my document of my affirmations of reminding myself who I am, that I am a magnificent, miraculous manifester of magic.
I love it. So it's a declaration. It's the statement of who you are. It's who you're creating yourself to be. Yeah. Last night in the SG groups, as the program for the 12 journeys, we taught about uncertainty and abundance. And one of the concepts that we teach in there is create yourself before you create anything. Like explorers, before they go out into the unknown, they create certainty in themselves first, so that they know that they can count on themselves no matter what's going on out here. So they create certainty here, not out here, because this is still unknown. But you get to the point where you're so good at calling the shots, like you just know whether it's last minute or before, it's going to happen, right? So you get very comfortable with calling the shots and making it happen. But that's because you have confidence in your ability to create. So it still comes back to who's doing the doing and who's doing the viewing, like looking out in your future, right? Can you speak to that a little bit? How important is that declaration or that creation of yourself before you go out and start playing with serendipity or creation or magic, like you say, right? Yeah. How important is that?
I will tell you what is this year has been probably my biggest growth year when it comes to really overcoming those limiting beliefs, to the point where I really don't entertain them. I mean, of course, we're all human. We're going to have them. Sure. But they used to rule me, right? So I'm going to share another thing really, really powerful, back to our subconscious belief, things that we're not even conscious of that show up for us.
Yeah.
So there's 8 kids in my family. My mom had the first 5 1 year apart. There's 5 because there were twins in the middle.
Okay? Nick, it sounds like your family a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got a herd.
We got a herd.
Well, how many, Nick?
Well, there's
brothers
11
and sisters.
And Yeah.
Okay.
But right there, I can relate to that. Right. So,
Right.
so keep going. Yeah.
So after my mom had her sixth, she had her tubes tied. Okay. And then 6 years later, I decided, oh, you're not done, lady. I'm still coming. Right. And so I've had this belief, and I've always shared it this way. And I've, as a family, we've always said this is like, oh, Judy's the miracle baby. She untied the tubes, and she was a rebel from the beginning. She was here. She's meant to be here. So there was like
see
this.
you in there, like,
I see that.
This goes over here, and
right.
that. Whoop.
So even though consciously,
Last minute.
Last minute.
right? That's funny. So even though consciously it was a positive story,
Yeah.
subconsciously, whenever I experience any kind of like success or close to success, I would self-sabotage because what was happening in the operating system in the background in the subconscious mind was like, you're not even wanted. You're not even supposed to be here. You're a mistake. You were not even planned. And so that's what was running the show. And so every time I try to do something, it would just knock me down. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know that was in there. And so the deep work that I've done in the recent years, and, starting from like really diving into personal development since 2009, really seeing that, wow, that was this root of me not feeling even worthy to be in the room, just to be on earth.
Yeah.
And so being able to remove that root, it has been incredible for my, not just exponential growth, but quantum. Like, I just feel like I'm going from universe to universe in my growth because I don't have that hanging over me anymore. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting. That's powerful. This whole conversation, I know we could just keep going. Like, we could get off topic and do another topic and just keep going. It's just powerful that it all starts here. Everything comes from who we're being. So it comes from within. I think it was Daniel Alexa shared something that he learned from Rich Litvin. And that was that your goals are where you come from, not where you're going to, right? And so when you look at vision, same thing. Vision is where you're coming from. And the idea here is like an architect, they build out the building on paper before it ever gets a brick laid. Like they don't lay the foundation or anything until the whole thing is created on paper.
Oh, I like that visual.
And then the building comes from the architectural design. And a lot of times with our vision, we create it in here first. And we see it here as though it's a memory, like Kathrine Lee says, is a memory of things yet to be. And then it expresses from us, from who we're being. And so the very primary work that we've got to do is on ourselves, because it'll come from there. And there are some people that say, I'm satisfied with where I am. I don't want to go anywhere else from here. And that's actually okay. Like, you don't have to. Like, for me, that doesn't work. Like, I don't want to stay where I'm at. I want to continue to grow the rest of my life in any way that I can imagine. I want to look for places where I feel small and expand out as much as is possible in those areas. So, and there are so many places in my life that I still feel small, right? Yeah. And so the idea here is that if it comes from us, that is the work that is the most important, is the work on you internally, not what you're doing, right? Like, that's the beauty of this whole conversation, is you're outlining from beliefs. That's all in here. Reticular activating is all in here. Your views, your healing work is all in here, right? Your dreams came from in here. Signing that paper was right here.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. What else comes up? What else do you want to share?
Okay, one last one.
Yeah, beautiful. Let's do it.
So this is in relation to what you're saying. Goals are a place to come from, not a place to get to, right?
Yeah.
I was working with the coach, and he says, well, how much money do you want to make how much money you want to make this year? And I had no plan, no intention. Like, there was, if you have 0 on your target, you're going to hit it every time, right?
Pretty easy. So. Yeah. But sometimes you actually miss it and you go negative, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was a little bit embarrassed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even have a number in mind. And he was like, just give me a number. And so I gave him a number. And I was even embarrassed to say this number out loud because, again, back to the unworthiness of like, oh, who am I to even say this number? And so I just said it just for the sake of our coaching time. I just said the number, and he said, all right, well, consider it done. Do you feel it in your nervous system? Like, how does that feel to know that you have that money in the bank? Like, that money is there. And I don't know what happened, but something shifted in me. Because I really, like, for that 1 minute, really believed that that money was in the bank, right? And so think about, like, as a coach, right? If you are coaching and you are trying to make rent, what's your energy like when you're trying to enroll a client and you're kind of desperate to make rent?
Yeah, really
very
tough. Well, I've been there. I know exactly that energy, and it's not fun.
Survival.
Yeah,
survival.
Yeah.
And we're all energy, in that frequency and that vibration. I can guarantee that the person on the other side is feeling that, right?
Yeah.
So now if you're coming from a place of, man, I've got like all this money in the bank, hundreds of $1,000s in the bank, how are you showing up in that enrollment conversation?
Super relaxed.
Right. And your brain doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So if you really feel it in your nervous system that I've got this much money in the bank, you're showing up differently in the world, right?
Yeah.
So this is like crazy, you guys, because I'm not one of those like, oh, make 6 figures in 6 months kind of coach. Like, that's not me. Like I said, I didn't even have a freaking goal.
Yeah.
So since that time, that was in April, I have had people deposit money in my account every day. I've had everything that I created. I had people signing up for it. So much so that we're only in September. I am like $10,000 from that number that I said out loud.
Holy cow.
Holy cow is right. I'm like, what in the world? What's happening here? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. This is beautiful. Okay. Have you heard of hope theory?
No.
It's something to research and to look up. And that's all I'm going to say. No, I'll tell you what it is here. The idea of vision, the importance of vision is that it creates hope. And when we have hope, hope theory says that hope is the idea that our future will be better. Hope is the idea that we are the ones that can make it better. And hope is the idea that whatever obstacle that comes up will become a stepping stone to that creation. So there's 3 components there, right? One, that our future is better, that we're the ones that are creating it, and that any obstacle is a stepping stone to that creation. When we look at our future from despair, which is, hope comes from the word esperar, which means to breathe into, right? To give spirit to. Is despair is the opposite of that. It's to breathe out of it. And so when we look at our future with despair, we see every obstacle as a block to our creation, right? We can't see the bright future, and we can't see ourselves doing it. We're hopeful that somebody, in a way, the wrong use of hope is that somebody else will bring it to us. They'll rescue us from our situation. So hope theory is very important. And vision is a part of that. Even that glimpse that you got of that money in your account created a shift because of hope in you. There was this thought, I can actually do that. Right. And then look at the activity.
It was far-fetched. I mean, I just said a number, like, not even believing that that could happen. Right. I was just like, I need to say something because he's pressing me to say a number. So I just felt like pressure to say it. So I didn't even believe it at first.
Yeah, wow.
But once it landed, and once I chose to really feel it and believe it, right? Again, our mind is going to make and confirm and validate whatever we put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you put in your RAS, hey, I really believe this is going to happen. It's going to work towards that commitment and that goal. So it is fun.
What I love here is every one of us has experience around, like, stepping into the unknown. It's like, I don't have any clue what's going to happen next. And
we were talking about that, Judy, right before he came on.
Yeah.
Just excited for possibilities.
Yeah. No obstacles, just stepping stones. And man, it really starts here, because when you do this work and you heal this, then you're able to see more and more. And it's fun to do the work while you're feeling unhealthy, right? Like it's fun to see these glimmers of, wow, this is really possible for me. And so it's powerful.
It is so powerful. Gosh, thank you guys for this fun evening. I love this. This is so fun.
Yeah, this is cool. Like I have no idea how this would even turn out. So it turned out perfect.
Serendipitously, it turned out fantastic. We were hoping, we all said, we really, really hope that Alex shows up. And he did.
And look at that.
Okay, I keep saying one last one. This is really the last one. This is really the last one.
I don't believe you. I think of Nacho Libre. You're not been baptized? No, I only believe in science.
Oh, I'm seeing all these comments. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening and being here. In my book, Beautiful Tragedy, I have a chapter in there on serendipity. And so part of the premise of my book, I talk about the GIVE principle, which stands for grounding, intention, visualization, and expressing gratitude. And so every day I would ask for a word, and that would be my intention for the day. And so one day in particular, it was the day that we were actually going to find a casket for my son. So Eric and I were driving to the funeral home to get with the funeral director to get a casket. So I'm sitting in my meditation and I'm asking for a word, and the word is serendipity. And I was like, okay, that's not funny. Like, what kind of word is that on the day that I'm going to pick up my son's casket? Like, that's not cool. I'm like, are you sure that's the word? Yes, that's the word. Okay, well, I'm just going to listen and figure out. I actually remember having to look it up in the dictionary because I was like, this is a really random word for today, for what I have to do today, right? But I went with it, and so I meditated, and Eric and I drove to the funeral home, and it was so surreal. We didn't even talk to each other. We just sat in silence of like, couldn't even believe that this is what we're doing today. So we get to the funeral home, and we meet with the guy, and you know, if you've ever hopefully never had to have to get a casket, but it's like going to a used car lot where there's 250 caskets on the walls and you pick which one you want, right? So he shows us, the funeral director shows us this casket, and he says, this one is made of pine wood, and a lot of Jewish and Muslim people, I think, get this kind of casket because they believe that you come from dust, you return to the dust. This is the most biodegradable, casket. And for some reason, I just felt in my spirit, like, I don't know, I think this is the one. And Eric was standing across from me. Like I said, we didn't even talk to each other, but he had the same feeling, like, I think this is the one, right? And if you guys knew Jacob, my son, he was like really gregarious. I mean, he had pink hair. He was all about the bling and everything. And this was just this super humble, pine wood casket. Wow. There were no bells and whistles to it. So I don't know why I had this feeling like this is the one. And Eric had the same feeling. So when the funeral director walked up to write down the serial number of this casket, he goes up to write it down, and the casket is called the Jacob.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Holy cow.
Called the Jacob. And we all just stood there like jaw dropped, and it occurred to me why the intention for the day was serendipity. So I'm going to leave you with that. That's my last story today.
Yeah, you can't do that to us, Judy. Like, here's what I would wonder, how do people talk with you? If somebody's watching this and they think, I want to have a conversation with you, I've got your website up there, but do you have a process that you follow for people to get in conversation with you if they want to explore this, this topic with you? Is there something that you do? Do you?
I mean, I gave out my phone number, online. It's in my book. So I am very open. Anyone can call me, DM me, reach out to me. I'm serious. I'll put my phone number here, 512-897-5487. And I will talk to anyone. I will share. When we had the memorial for Jacob, I was sharing about one of the things I'm going to miss most about Jacob are his unsolicited texts and phone calls and FaceTimes, right? And for a teenage boy to reach, call his mom unsolicited, that meant a lot to me. And I was sharing on stage, and I forgot that his memorial was being live streamed to like 100,000 people. And he was an artist and he was a rapper, so he had like fans or whatever. So I'm sharing this, and I said, wherever you are, I want you to take out your phones right now and text your mom that you're thinking of her. And if you don't have a mom, you can call me. And I put my phone number out there. And up to this day, I still get text messages from people that just say, I'm thinking about you. And, it's such a beautiful thing. But so I'm not shy about putting my phone number out there and sharing and connecting. And, something that Jacob has really taught me is that you just live out loud every day, because you're not promised tomorrow. And every opportunity that you have to tell people that you love them, you're thinking about them, and that you care about them, do it.
Man, this
I just sent you a text.
Yay, good. I love you. Thank you.
The beauty of this is, like, anybody watching this can literally do that. Like, whatever stories are going on in here that say, I can't call Judy, why would she want to talk to me, this is the opportunity to overcome that. Like, I would say, if this really speaks to you, if you're watching this, is reach out to Judy and have that conversation. Like, truthfully, it'll change your world. It's powerful. So I love it. I love what you shared tonight. Like, the stories, I hope you have one more. Like, I hope we're like wrapping up and you're like, I got one more.
I have so many. I'm going to write a book. I have so many. But you know what? Maybe we save it for another, like, part 2 of this.
Let's do it.
Because I love being with you guys. And anytime I can connect with you guys,
thank you for that.
We'll do it.
Ryan, did you have final thoughts here?
The person that I know Judy to be is exactly what we've experienced today, like the person that she is, and that she's becoming, because she continuously sets her sights on a new mountain, a new peak to climb. She sees where she's playing small and gets excited about it. Like, hey, there's a small spot. Let's see what we can do with this. And she sees the best in others, and I'll tell you, she will answer. She'll get back to you if you send her a text or give her a phone call, leave a message. And that's the type of person that Judy is, and she is a massively powerful creator. We've experienced that in the Giants with the ultimate experience, and with Philip Weech and all the people that were involved in that whole effort, Xavier and Julie and Alex, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on, because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people that have been affected because of Judy. I would say tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people now at this point, because of how she's being, that has rippled out into the world. So Judy, thank you for being here, B, for being my friend and a giant to all of us. So thank you.
Oh, I love you. Okay, I so lied. I have one more.
Let's hear it.
This one is relevant to what you just shared.
Yeah.
So, creating the ultimate experience, as you know, birthed the London experience. And serendipitously, I was invited to go. I wasn't going to go because I was like, who goes to an event in London for one day? That's crazy. But when I was open to the possibility, someone said, we can't have this event without you here, so I want to pay for you to come out. And so we went, right?
Wow.
Once we were there, Karan Rai, one of his keynote speech, he talked about, you've got to do some epic shit in your life, like so big, so crazy that you have no idea how it's going to happen. Like, create something so big that you have to, like, live into whatever that is. And so Eric and I got to go to London together, and we took a little side trip to Paris, and, you know, we had a really great time. And so we started creating and brainstorming, just him and I, like, well, what would our epic thing be? Like, what if we can wave a magic wand and if we can do whatever we want, what would that look like? And so we started writing down some names of some coaches that we, you know, would collaborate with and create like a mastermind and do some really cool events in amazing places like Italy and Paris and, you know, back in the States. And so we were just playing, we were just creating, and we're just like, oh, that would be cool when, you know, we're just dreaming together. So we come home, and one of the people on the list, I love and adore, his name is Rich Habits. I don't know if you guys know Rich. And I love Rich because Rich is a no nonsense kind of guy, and he will just tell you the truth. So I knew that if I shared my idea with him, he'd be like, oh, Judy, that's a stupid idea. Like, he would just tell me that straight out.
Yeah.
So he was the first person I asked on this list, and he said, this is genius, I'm in. And so, you know, that the video of leading a movement, right? You have one lunatic, and then the second person is really the most important person for the ultimate experience. It was Alex Dumas, because he was the first person I asked, and he said, yes, I'm in. And that's what started the movement, while Rich Habit said yes. And so I went down the list of all the people that we had on this list that we created in London, and every single person said yes. And we are creating an event on 11/11. It's going to be an online Zoom event. It's a 2-day event with these 8 coaches, where you're going to have a hands-on experience, where it's going to be like speed dating, but you're going to be going to like one coach after the other. And each one has their expertise, where you're going to get hands-on coaching, interactive coaching with each coach. So that was what was created in London. And that's happening on 11/11. So there you go.
And then, right? And then, all right. So where do they find that? What's the website? Is there one?
Yes, but I don't have it offhand. I will post it in the link.
Post it in the
I'll
comments.
go back here in the comments, and I'll share it. Yeah.
Do it on, I think the Tribe of Giants would be the best place for that. Because a lot of people are in there to watch this. And so, and then maybe Wake Up with Giants TV on Facebook. So
cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
11/11.
Yeah. Well, Lori, she said 11/11. You know that Jacob's birthday is 01/11/01. So 11/11 is a very special date. And when we were going to have the event, it was going to be on 11/4. And then there was some scheduling conflicts, and a couple of the coaches couldn't do it on 11/4. So then when I looked at the calendar, I was like, of course, 11/11 has to be 11/11. So
amazing.
That's it.
All right. Any other stories?
We'll save it.
Are you sure? Yeah.
We'll really save it. I love you guys.
I love you too.
Thank you for indulging all my crazy stories. But yeah, there's plenty more. Perfect. We'll do it some more.
I want to thank everybody that's been watching and staying through this. I mean, 140 comments back and forth. Wow. Just I love our audience because the interactions. Like, you guys are amazing. And so your comments, we love seeing them. Like, if you have friends you want to bring on and they want to comment, we'll take them too. Like, even if they disagree with what we're saying,
sometimes I miss them. No, I'm just kidding. I do my best.
Yeah. It's we're just grateful for you for being on here, you know, and I hope that this served everybody that's watching tonight. I trust that it did. And thank you for being on for so long with us. There's more to come. I don't even know what it looks like. I just know there's a lot that will happen in the future that's bright and positive and good. So we hope you'll join us. We love you. Make it a giant day. We'll see you in the next video.
Love you too.